Let us take up Daniel Defoe and Henry Fielding, who started writing in the early 18th century as the people who gave kind of fillip to the energy, to the existence of the novel. And novel then started, enriching itself and becoming more and more meaningful. Daniel Defoe was not sure that he was writing a novel. He was just telling through an imaginary character certain things that the character would have seen, but actually the author himself would have known, about the journey. And in fact, the journey and travel are at the, back of the English novel in a major way. So Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe and Henry Fielding's Tom Jones and Joseph Andrews, these are the novels that refer to people who don't stick to one place. It can be called, a traveler or even otherwise. They shift from one place to another. And the focus is always upon this individual who is going from one place to another. This person can be called Picaro, a person, who doesn't have a regular job, doesn't have any station, doesn't have any he's just moving around and he's meeting new people. And very soon, this person will have a large number of series of experiences to share with others. So this kind of a novel is called Picaresque Novel. It's about a character and an individual who is curious to know and who is just dabbling with this thing and that thing in life and doesn't want to adopt any specific profession to pursue. So this is a Picaro. So Picaro is initially this is a person who is unsettled, who is destabilized, who doesn't have a job, who is not trustworthy. You can't trust a Picaro because the time you have a kind of friendship with him, this person will leave the place and will not come back, or will come back after that time, and then he would have forgotten whether he had this kind of friendship with you or not. So Picaro is always suspicious character. Suspicious in the sense that people don't rely upon him. He is unreliable. And Daniel Defoe and Henry Fielding are focusing upon the nature and character of the Picaro, because the Picaro has a large number of experiences in his bag. So he can take out those experiences, he can share with you those experiences, and then he can dazzle you by his range of knowledge. So these writers then were actually taken up with, in terms of interest, with this Picaro, the person who came from elsewhere and who will go away to another place later. And they were not sure that they were writing a novel, that they were serving any particular purpose while writing a novel. You see, society did not appeal to them in that sense that it would require them to write a novel and all those things. But then the Picaresque as associated with the enterprise of traveling, which is generally the case, that the novel is always there in the mind of a traveler, the traveler who has to tell his tale about the experiences that he has seen. Moving around, Picaro moves around, traveler also moves around, knowing about the unknown mysterious world with curiosity and wonder. Does it fit in with the description of the novel also? That the novel will talk to us about something mysterious, and that it will make us curious, and that it will pose questions to us, and it will give a kind of fodder to our imagination. So this is what the novel is going to be later. All these things would be kind of ingredients of the novel. The novel may be then interpreted in so many different ways, but this particular way would be peculiar to the novel. So this is the beginning of the novel writing. Now let's see since I have already introduced you to the kind of question that is there at the back of the origin of the novel. Now let's see how other critics understand novel to be, what they call it, what they think about it, and whether their view of the novel can be accepted. We will take it up with the help of this quotation. Says John Mullen, a contemporary critic, the novel begins as if it were a true story. Why is the word true within quotes? Because the story can't be true. True is that which we go through. And if somebody is telling us, then one doesn't know whether the story is true or not. But the novel, the writer, The person who tells a story always swears by the truth of it. It is true or not, one cannot say, but then the writer will say it's a true story. So the novel that way always would be assumed as a true account. You can make your own judgment about it. You can say that what is told in the novel is not what you see in life, but that is your problem. That is my problem as a reader. The writer would say that he is telling you truth. The second thing is that as one goes on reading a novel, let's say one has crossed the 10 pages and gone beyond that, 20 pages, and why should one go beyond 20 pages unless one is interested in it? And why should one be interested if the novel doesn't appear to be true? These are the questions that haunt us. That these are the questions that are raised. So the novel begins as if it were a true story. Yet Defoe's fiction was not noticed by contemporary literary critics. Fiction was not noticed. People would not, they just call it fiction, and they would not recognize it. They would think it was somebody who had gone somewhere, then he saw those places, then he came back and he was bruised, or he was happy, or whatever, he was fulfilled. These things are not important. The important thing is that it was an account that was true. So maybe it was the history of a place. Maybe it was an actual travel account. So contemporary literary critics, and not included in discussions of the best literature of the age. That is about the 18th century. In 18th century, Defoe particularly was not a trustworthy writer, as if he were writing a novel. Later on, in the 20th century, Defoe is recognized as a writer. Now you know that he was using his imagination. Now you know that he has certain ideas. He also had a sense of values, that he was depicting human beings with a mission. So in his own time, his talent was not recognized as a writer. But later on, people found that this is very close to what a novel is. And his writing became very educative. Naturally, if he's telling us about our weaknesses, about our questions and our faults, then we feel benefited by whatever he tells us, and therefore the distinction of his being a writer emerged much later. But the crux is that the novel in his hands was supposed to be a true account. Then these novels were published. We know that his fiction, that is Defoe's fiction, was popular, but it was not regarded as properly literary. Why is something popular and not properly literary? Please start thinking yourself. Something that is popular, I think, has to be literary. Just think about it. If something is popular, if more and more people read it, if in my village, if in my town 100 people or 200 people have read it, if there is a novel that is being read by thousands of people, in a country, and that is popular literature, why can't it be literary? You see, 20th century and 21st century are centuries of people who write novels as a profession. And they have already read a large number of novels themselves, and they want to compete with those novels. They want to say we can write better. We can write better than others. If somebody uses language very crudely or rather obscurely, then the new writer can boast about that he is very fine in his writing. He is very sensitive, and then he also has those qualities of making people excited that other people do not have. Literary is a difficult thing to define, but literary is that which is bound with taste, which is bound with finesse, which is bound with a sense of beauty, and that beauty which is concentrated beauty. It's not, if there is a laughter, then that's one kind of beauty. If there is a smile that is given created by the writer on the face of the person, then that is literary. Somebody who just squeezes one's eyes wants to understand and keeps squeezing for 10-15 minutes. I think that is literary in the modern sense of the term, because then the person is obsessed by, is haunted by the idea that was there in it. So I would not give you any idea regarding what is literary and what is not literary, because that is a term that is always relative. So one person call it literary, the other person call it snobbish. So I would say that popularity and literariness generally go together, and that there is no antagonism between the two. The only difference is that if it's merely popular, and anything can be popular, so something which is very improper can be popular, Something which is abusive can be popular. So there is some issue with popularity. Every popular thing is not necessarily a good thing. So it also should tell us something. It should also enrich our understanding. It should make us better human beings. It should not spread hatred. It should not spread enmity among the masses. It may be popular that way also. So there is a point there that some popular things are very harmful for society. So going out of that, one would say that generally speaking, a larger population would be interested in a thing because they like it, and they like it because it is very close to our heart. So I would say that this person, Defoe, initially was not able to arouse what can be called the literary interest. Many of his novels were lumped together in the public imagination with all these things, and they were popular in the period. Readers were not yet aware that a new genre was with them. Initially, the English novel in the early 18th century was read for its popularity, for its newness, not for its engaging quality, its tendency to raise questions. That was not the issue. It had to be popular. There had to be jokes. There had to be some kind of wit. There had to be something interesting. That was popular, and novel initially came into being, was read by people simply because it created a sense of happiness in the mind of the reader. But then it was not novel in the sense in which the term and the form was established in the 19th and 20th centuries. Okay, that's fine. The preface to Robinson Crusoe has many words for the narrative. Okay, I think by now you know that narrative is a story. That narrative is that which has a beginning and a middle and an ending. That the narrative starts at a particular point, and the moment the narrative begins, people become interested in it and they want to know further. So there is you can think of a teacher who is very interesting in the class. He enters the class and he starts talking to the students, and he tells them one interesting thing after another. So what is he doing? He is basically narrating. So you will say, okay, children, now listen to me, and I am going to tell you about what I saw yesterday. I went to a particular place, and there somebody's pocket was picked, but the person didn't know. It goes on and on like this, and the class is spellbound because they want to know more and more about the teacher and about what he saw the previous day. This is called a narrative. Narrative means you tell people directly, and you are using your voice, you are using your language, you are using your imagination, and the audience, they start thinking about all that you are saying. That's the story. Okay. Adventures. So novel was a story, but to others it was an adventure. Adventure means something that requires some risk. That's a kind of a challenge. You go to a place, it's difficult to reach, but then you want to reach it, and therefore you make the extra effort. So that it's an adventure. There are risks involved in it, but you want to take the risk. Account. What is an account? Account, once again, is a description. So you give an account. You just say, this is what happened. Life. What is life in a novel? Think about it. I think it can be the biography of one character or another character. I think it can be an actual experience that is there between two individuals or within a family. They are living life at that level, and you are just from a small distance or from close quarters are watching those people live their life. So it is that kind of life. It's very difficult to imagine that a book with the black marks on a white page that can somehow symbolize life, but no. You just think of those black marks. They are words, and when you read and understand those words, then those words carry you from your plane of reality to another place, and that place has life in it. Therefore, you are interested in that life. That's what life is. I hope you have understood this. Then history. History also is supposed to be very closely associated with the novel. And the two are different things. In the previous point, I talked about literariness, something literary, popular and literary. Something that is literary cannot be historical, is not history. What is history? There are departments in the country, there are departments in other countries also, and they are called history departments, and those departments tell you not about life as such, not about literature as such, they tell you about events and situations which actually are there, which can be authenticated with the account of people who give the historical details, that kind of a description. So can history be called a novel? In fact, viewers, if I tell you about the middle level writers who lived in the medieval period and later Renaissance period, then they were very proud of being called historians. Shakespeare wrote plays not about contemporary life but about histories, and in fact his plays are called history plays. Even in the title of the word history is mentioned. They are plays. Plays mean that they also contain poetry, they contain soliloquies, they contain songs, and there is a lot of entertainment in them. And when Shakespeare presents his plays on the stage, then he is able to get money from the audience so that they could watch his plays. So where is history in it? Think about it. Is literature history? Is what is presented on the stage or on the page historical? Novels were called history at that point of time. In the title of the world, history was generally mentioned. History of Tom Jones, that is the title of the novel by Henry Fielding, that he is telling about the history. So I think the word history that is there in this particular quote has a closeness with the story and with reality, the real that I was talking about. And then fact. Novels are also facts. But says this person, Mullen, that none of them is that word novel. They are not novel. So what is the problem? How do we call it a novel? Is novel a history? Is novel a story? Is novel an adventure? Is it an account? Does it have life? Can it be called history? These are the questions and fact. But then this critic says that none of these is that word novel. I think already we have something on hand to discuss. What is a novel? All these words are mentioned in association with the novel, but all these are not novels. I think the question is well posed, and it is your job, it's my job to understand why the novel is not mentioned with respect to this particular genre. Or when you read the novel, then you think of these things, but they are not novel. And then the answer comes, it is significant that readers did not yet use this word to describe this new genre. Yet means in the 18th century. In Robinson Crusoe's preface, all these words occurred, but later on those words were discarded, and people started calling it a novel. Initially they didn't call it a novel. That is the meaning hidden here. So Robinson Crusoe was called a story. It was called an adventure. It was called an account. It was called life. It was called history. It was called fact. What it was not called was novel. So the people thought it was not novel, it was just all these things. And in fact that added to the value of Robinson Crusoe. People might have started reading it seriously. They might have started discussing it seriously. They might have read it out to others who had not read it. And that way the fun would be further increased. So it is significant, says the critic, that readers did not yet use the word in those days to describe this new genre. So the word new is there, that it's a new genre. It's not drama, it's not poetry, it's not epic, it's not satire, all those forms that were established. Okay, then the next point I share with you is the noun existed. Noun means the word novel. Existed, but it referred to what we might call a short story, a genre of brief tales, often of forbidden romantic entanglements, usually published in collections. That was the novel in the 18th century. What was the novel? It was a story. Just you are reading it because it's a story. The novel was tales. Once again, the tale that is told. The story is read, the tale is told. The narrative is that which is narrated to you. You can always understand the difference of the word from the nature. Often of forbidden romantic entanglements. This is a new thing that has come. We have not so far discussed it. We were discussing travel. We were discussing adventures. But we didn't discuss forbidden romantic entanglements. What is that? Forbidden is that which is immoral, which is considered to be immoral. The Bible uses the word forbidden for the fruit of knowledge. No, says God, don't go near this tree, because this is the tree of knowledge, and He wants people to enjoy, not to have or acquire knowledge. Knowledge is forbidden. Why? Because that will flout the wish of God. It's as dangerous as that. God, the all-powerful, the Almighty, will be unhappy with you, will be angry with you, will take action against you, penalize you, punish you. Why? Because you are flouting His wish. He doesn't want you to go near the tree of knowledge, and if you went, then He will punish you. So it's forbidden. Then this writer uses the romantic entanglements. Romantic entanglements. If somebody falls in love with a woman, falls in love with a man falls in love with a woman, that's romantic entanglement. Maybe the man is married and he's having an affair with somebody else. The woman is married and she is having an affair with someone else. Then the husband and wife, the spouse. But this is the romantic entanglement. So it's forbidden, and it's a romantic entanglement. Considering love, considering the body, considering sex, all that is important. But then all that is forbidden. But the novels talk about it, says this author, and usually published in collections. So if stories are published, if they talk about the forbidden things, if the forbidden things are supposed to be the subjects of physical intimacy, the subject of romantic entanglements, then that is very close to a novel. Would you agree with this? Well, whether you agree or not, whether I agree or not, this is what was the case in the 18th century. Most of the novels talked about these things. And because they talked about these things, and these things were submerged in the memories, the minds, the imaginations of most of the readers, therefore people started reading the novel. So novel then in that case would be about the forbidden thing, about that which the society does not approve of, which is not religious, which is not instructional, which is only appeals to our hidden desires. Those hidden desires which we are compelled to hide, because making them open, making them explicit would not be appreciated by the society as a whole. Think about it. If that is the case, then the reading of the novel itself, is an act of revolt against the established moral code. Would you agree with this? I cannot give any answer. This critic would not give any answer. He would simply say that this is how the novel was understood in the 18th century. So think about it and reach your own conclusions. Then many of the leading writers of these were women, of whom Delaware, Manley and Eliza Haywood were the most famous. He is able to also refer to the names of the women who were writing these particular narratives or tales. That's somewhat interesting, don't you think? That the moment he talks about the forbidden, he talks about women. So women are writing, they are enjoying themselves with this kind of a tale, with this kind of tales. They write and they compel others to write and to read. They are the word today is titillation. That you have a kind of pleasure out of something that you can't share easily with others, but then it titillates you. You can't also control yourself. You have to see this and you enjoy it in the privacy of your home, in the privacy of your bedroom. You want to read and you don't want to let people know that you are reading it. And who is writing these novels? Women are writing these novels mainly. Who are reading these novels? Women are reading these novels. Question is why? Once again, you know that literature itself is an activity which is not approved of by a large number of people in society, and particularly those who believe in religion, who believe in morality. They don't like novels. Maybe they are reading themselves in the privacy of their homes, but openly they cannot say that they like this kind of a thing. So a kind of conundrum, a kind of a problem occurs with us, that we want to read, we have the desire to read, we have the desire to write these things, and at the same time we are afraid that if others come to know it, then they would think that we are immoral, and we are indulging in some kind of an act of revolt against morality. Would you agree with this? Because this is the root. This is at the root of the novel. This is how novels became popular in the 18th century. It is this point from where, when the novel goes forward, then it becomes the modern novel as we see today. So, if novel has any origin, because what the title of my talk is origin, then the origin is in the forbidden that became possible for writing in the 18th century itself. So, I go then further and say something final regarding this, and let's see what exactly will be the outcome of the discussion. Defoe's last novel, Roxana, a fictional memoir of a Restoration courtesan, owes something to this briefly dominant subgenre of prose fiction. So this is one of the last novels. This is the last novel of Defoe, and there this memoir of the Restoration courtesan. Why should people be interested in a courtesan? And that courtesan belonging to the late 17th century, the Restoration period. Once again, this raises the question, and courtesan is not supposed to be at the center of a cultured society in the sense we understand the term, the courtly life, the moral life, the life in the church, the life in society, along with the family and all those things. Courtesan is an outcast. She belongs not to the established family. And Restoration courtesan would definitely be something that all of us would like to disapprove, because we have to show to others that we are very moral people. Therefore, when Defoe writes this, then he arouses that kind of disapproval. So, after I have given this general idea, then let me conclude by saying that the initial writing, which was the origin, which is the time of origin, I'm just giving at the end of it names of the authors and novels, and with this I'll finish the discussion. John Bunyan, The Pilgrim's Progress, was one novel in the late 17th century. It was a novel of morality. Ephra Benn, writing Oronooko, she was writing about novelty, unknown people. Daniel Defoe, Robinson Crusoe, Moll Flanders, they were writing about what I already told you, the forbidden and the adventurous. Jonathan Swift, showing his anger, and this is also not exactly a novel, Gulliver's Travels, but it's very close to a novel and would be a precursor to the novel. And then the epistolary novels in the form of letters. So if there are, let's say, 100 letters, 200 letters in a novel written by one and then written back by another, then finally it becomes a narrative. So these were the initial examples of the novels in England, and all these examples finally became classics of the novels, and we understand them, study them, and with the help of that we try to understand the social structures of the time when these novels were written. Thank you.